All right, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Noémie Ndiaye. I am an associate professor in the English department here at U Chicago and the founder of the Black Baroque Project. This is the last Black Baroque Project event of 2023. This event is recorded and the Zoom recording will be made available on our YouTube page, our YouTube channel. This event is made possible by the generosity of the Division of the Humanities, and I want to thank the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture, which continues sponsoring all our activities, as well as Rachel Willis, who is a brilliant PhD candidate here in the English department. She's our tech wizard today, and she has managed the Black Baroque Project for the last 2 years. Last but not least, I want to thank our distinguished guests today, Małgorzata Mirga-Tas and Dr. Anna Mirga-Kruselniczka, whom I will properly introduce in a minute. But first, I want to say a few words about the Black Baroque Project. Launched in 2021 at the University of Chicago, the Black Baroque Project organizes remote and in-person conversations with artists of color in theater, visual culture, dance, music, etc., who work with, against, and through Baroque culture in our own moment. Our primary focus is on Black cultural productions because despite the Baroque's age historical anchoring of Blackness in transatlantic slavery, many Black artists today are reworking this aesthetic tradition, exploring the paradoxical space between the Baroque and the African diaspora. There is a gap, a slash at the core of the phrase Black Baroque. Indeed, while the Baroque is a period that set the foundations for the white supremacist and anti-Black regimes in which we still live today, those aesthetic codes, the aesthetic codes of that time period, which were based on beautiful irregularity, complexity, surprise, dizzying folds, metamorphosis, illusions, movement, self-referentiality, all those aesthetic codes have been reclaimed by artists of the African diaspora and artists of color more generally. The artists featured in our series all probe that originary moment. They speak back, decolonize, to use today's artist's term, and reveal the ways in which it still lives in the present, even as they turn Baroque performance culture, Baroque visual culture, into vehicle for critique and renewal. 2 years ago, we hosted events with playwright and actor Keith Hamilton Cobb, actress and director Deborah Ann Bird, and French choreographer Bintou Dembélé. Last year, our programming featured visual artist Kajal Benes and Wole Lagunju. This year, we hosted visual artist Harmonia Rosales, and we launched our pilot Black Baroque Project Artist Grant with Detroit-based artist Backpack Durden as our inaugural recipient. On the Black Baroque Project, we want to hear from artists who reckon with the complexity of the Black/Baroque, and we curate conversations between such artists and scholars who are best positioned to help illuminate those artists' worlds for us. Now, we are also aware that Black people were not the only people whose racialization and oppression by white supremacy started in the Renaissance or the early modern period. Romani people, too, were in a similar situation, and some Renaissance scholars, myself included, are very interested in the connections, the relations, the solidarities between Black and Romani people in the Renaissance. And this is why here on the Black Baroque Project, we think of our causes as connected. We think of ourselves as allies to one another. In that sense, we are following the lead of scholars and activists who lead critical Romani studies today, who often connect their own work to Black studies. I'm thinking of someone like sociologist Ethel Brooks, who invokes W.E.B. Du Bois' notion of double consciousness to describe the experience of being a feminist Romani woman today. I'm thinking of early modern literary scholar Sidney Wagner, who I believe is affiliated with IRIAC, who draws on Jennifer Morgan's Laboring Woman from 2004 to compare the eugenic sterilization efforts targeting Romani women in several European countries to the same efforts targeting women of color in the US, particularly Black and Indigenous women. I'm thinking of Hungarian scholar of Romani studies, Angela Koce, I hope I pronounced her name right, who draws on the work of legal scholar, American scholar Bridget Baldwin around the figure of African-American so-called welfare queen to understand the mechanism of racialization that affect Central Eastern European Romani women today. I'm also thinking of Roma rights activist and scholar Małgorzata Mirga-Tas and Black Studies elder Cornel West, who demand in one breath, I quote, reparations for the comparable history of enslaved people in the US, in the Caribbean, and in Romania. I could go on. That critical tradition based on allyship is vital, which is why today's session is called Black Baroque Project Meets Critical Romani Studies, as we host a conversation between an artist, Małgorzata Mirga-Tas, who is leading the charge when it comes to reimagining Baroque figurations of Romani people, and a scholar, Dr. Anna Mirga-Kruselnicka, at the forefront of the fight for Roma rights in Europe today. I will now properly introduce them. So, Małgorzata Mirga-Tas is a Polish-Roma activist and artist. In her works, she tackles the issue of anti-Gypsy stereotypes, building an affirmative iconography of Roma communities. She graduated from the sculpture department of the Academy of Fine Arts in Krakow in 2004. Her works have been presented at many solo and group exhibitions, including the 14th Gwangju Biennale in 2023, Göteborgs Konsthall 2023, the 59th Venice Biennale in 2022, Documenta 15 in Kassel the same year, International Cultural Center in Krakow the same year, and the Guangzhou Triennial in China the same year. The 11th Berlin Biennale in 2020, the Biennale Art Encounters in Timișoara in 2019 and 2021, the 3rd Highway Biennale in Prizren the same year, the Moravian Gallery in Brno in 2017, the Center of Polish Sculpture in Orońsko, the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw, the Rautenstrauch, I'm sorry, I should have prepared for this, the Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum in Cologne, Germany. She lives and works in Czarna Góra in Spisz. Malgorzata Mirga-Tas, and I will refer to her from now on as Gosha, with her permission. Gosha combines various techniques to talk about identity and to show the daily life of her community. The artist is the winner of the Paszporty Polityki for 2020. That's an award for art that effectively, remarkably, and wisely talks about identity and heritage for the continued search of prevailing values and universals in the Romani tradition. She represented Poland at the 59th Venice Biennale in 22 with an exhibition titled Re-enchanting the World. And that is where I first encountered Gosha's work, when I walked into the Polish pavilion in July 2022 and found myself submerged within the magic of her monumental work. I want to show a few pictures for those of you who haven't yet had a chance to admire it, to admire Re-enchanting the World. So let me share my screen and get us started. There we go. So Re-enchanting the World is a picture palace. It is an installation of 12 large format textiles divided into 3 horizontal bands or levels corresponding to the month of the calendar, right? So you have 12 of them, and she borrowed that structure from the astrological frescoes of the Palazzo Scifonaia in Ferrara, Italy, which you can see on your screen right now. This is one image of the palazzo in Italy, and here is a detail that shows you the 3-level structure. Now, let me show you a few images of Gosha's work, and you will see immediately how citation is working here. So this is the Polish pavilion, Re-enchanting the World. And I'm going to read the official description of this work from the Biennale website because I find it very illuminating. The zodiac signs, allegories of month, cyclicity, cyclicity, and the migration of symbols across time and continents between India, Persia, Asia Minor, ancient Greece, Egypt, and Europe become visual and ideological points of reference for Gosia, who inscribes them in a specific Polish-Roma vernacular historical experience. Just imagine yourself submerged. And here's a detail. The upper band, which you can see clearly on this image, depicts the story of the mythical journey of the Roma to Europe based on a series of 17th century prints by the Lorraine French engraver Jacques Callot, which the artist decolonizes. And here is one example, one print from that series of engravings by Callot, of etchings, sorry, by Callot. And here is one example. You know, I juxtaposed the original and Gosia's reworking of it to show you the kind of transformation she is performing. One example and another one. I particularly love this one. The middle band is an effective archive of Roma her stories, which combines images of real women with magic and astrology. We're back to Re-enchanting the World, and you can see the middle band with everything I was just describing. Finally, the lower band depicts everyday life in the artist's hometown and in other Roma settlements in the Tatra Mountains. I want to mention also that the catalog, the very rich and detailed catalog of this exhibition, is actually available, can be downloaded for free on the website of the Venice Biennale, and we will make sure to drop the link in the chat box very soon for anyone who is interested. But from that moment onwards, from the moment I had entered that pavilion, I just knew that we had to host a Black Baroque project conversation with Gosia. It was going to happen, and we will more from her today about that astonishing piece of work. In conversation with Gosia today, I will end the show and stop sharing. In conversation with Gosia today is Dr. Anna Mirga-Tas, whom I will refer to as Anna from now on. She's an anthropologist and a Roma activist born in 1985 in Krakow, Poland. She earned her PhD in social and cultural anthropology at the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona in 2016. She holds an MA in European integration from that same university and an MA in comparative studies of civilizations from the Jagiellonian University in Krakow. She is the author of various policy evaluations, reports, and articles. She's the co-editor of Education for Remembrance of the Roma Genocide, Scholarship, Commemoration, and the Role of Youth from 2015. She is the author of Rethinking Roma Resistance Throughout History, Recounting Stories of Strength and Bravery, 2020. And the author of Mobilizing Romani Ethnicity, Romani Political Activism in Argentina, Colombia, and Spain, 2022. Sounds like a fascinating comparative perspective, and I'm sure we'll hear more about this today. She's been an employee, member, founder, and collaborator of numerous Roma organizations in Poland and in Spain. From 2008 to 2012, she was the European project coordinator at the Federation of Roma Associations in Catalonia. From 2013 to 2015, she was an Open Society Foundation's Roma Initiatives Fellow. And in that capacity, she conducted a comparative study of the Roma associative movements in various countries of Latin America and Europe. 2015 to 2017, she was the coordinator and curator of the academic section in the Rome Archive, that's the digital archive of the Roma. And between 2017 and 2018, she was a postdoc research fellow of the Romani Studies program at the Central European University in Budapest. She serves as the deputy director of the European Roma Institute for Arts and Culture, which we will refer to on this platform as ERIAC from now on. She's been doing that since 2019. She is the perfect interlocutor for Gosia, and I am so grateful that you decided to join us today. I will get this conversation started with a few questions. This is a tri-conversation, and so I will get it started with a few questions for both Gosia and Anna. And that conversation will last for about 45 minutes. And then we will open the floor to questions from people in the audience. So feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A, is not the Q&A, sorry, the chat box, because this is a seminar structure today. Or if you prefer, you can just, raise your hand at the end, unmute yourself, turn on your camera, and ask your question to Gosia and Anna directly. But before I get started with my questions, I would actually like to turn to Anna, because we have here someone who is much better than I am at doing something very important in order to frame today's conversation. I would like to ask Anna to introduce our audience to Roma.
Thank you, Naomi, and thank you so much for the invitation. Both Gosia and I were really excited to be here, and we're really looking forward to today's discussion. And really thank you for kicking starting this discussion with the basic question about the Roma, because we feel that many times we are misunderstood and also misrepresented, and I think even more in the US, the knowledge about who we are is quite limited. So let me just walk you through a few basic facts about who we are so that we can settle the conversation about Gosia's work a little better. So we are the Roma, we are commonly referred to as Gypsies, which we do consider an ethnic slur. And we are the biggest ethnic minority in Europe. Somewhere between 8 to 10 million Europeans are of Romani background, and some 4 or 5 millions of Roma also live as a diaspora around the world. In fact, recent data shows us that around 1 million Roma live in the US. And we are a community that originates in India, and we know this based on our language, Romani language, Romanes, which is actually based in Sanskrit, and it shares a lot of commonalities with contemporary Hindu. And we are a minority that originated in India, and throughout the centuries we traveled through the Middle East, through the Byzantium, and entered through the south of the continent into Europe around 700 years ago. There's not so much reliable data from back then, but it is sure that late 13th, early 14th century, we were already on the European continent. And soon when we and the initial moment when we entered Europe, were faced with a little bit of fascination, which lasted very, very little time. And from, I would say, the middle of 14th century, yes, we already were subject to different types of anti-Roma legislation and to various forms of mistreatment. And throughout the centuries, we faced everything from forced assimilation to forced sterilizations to forced massive imprisonment. We have been enslaved in territories of contemporary Romania from 1385. I think this is the first reliable documents of the slave trade of Roma in Romania, which lasted for over 500 years. So until the second half of the 19th century, Roma were enslaved. And we were also put on the galleys and deported across the ocean. And really throughout that time, when we were subject to these different types of persecution and attempted genocide, also different diversity or the variety of our communities have been formed. This is important to highlight that we are we consider ourselves a diaspora, a non-territorial nation, but we are also greatly diverse in terms of our lifestyle, the dialect of our language, the religion that we may practice, and this diversity we find it beautiful and really enriching for our community. And I think for what's really relevant for today's discussion is that our identity, our culture, has been framed by the other, by the others, meaning the non-Roma community, by the outside, and it has been framed extremely negatively. So the stereotypes about who we are there's, I would say, maybe two groups of stereotypes that we face. One is the very negative one of the thief, the gypsy witch, a community that's lazy, that's poor. We're basically the antithesis for the white European. You know, and then there's also this romantic image of a sort of fetish around Roma, you know, Roma women, Roma culture as this free, you know, people who don't obey any rules, you know, who are very romantic. We all play guitar and we dance beautifully, and also kind of this Esmeralda or a Carmen, you know, image. Both of them are have been formed throughout centuries and have been stabilized and formed and stabilized across centuries since the Middle Ages, really, and they come today. And I went on the fact that as the biggest diaspora and the biggest ethnic minority around Europe and present in virtually all European countries, we still suffer discrimination and prejudice. You know, in the recent history, we were subject to the genocide during the Second World War, and like the Jewish community, the Roma were put in camps and concentration camps and were destined to a complete extermination. And different forms of forced sterilization, school segregation, you name it, we've been there, and many of these practices continue until today. At the same time, we forged a very rich civil rights movement, if I may say so, a struggle for self-determination, for you know, for equality and for rights. This is a movement that has been beautiful against all the struggles we've been, you know, trying to work together across centuries, across generations, across our nationalities, you know, and really, you know, build a better world for our communities, but also for the societies at large. And arts and culture has been extremely important in that struggle. And maybe I will leave it here, and I don't know if there are any more questions about the basics. Maybe we can follow up later.
That was great. Thank you so much, Anna. So with that, you know, background information in mind, let's turn to Gosia's work. And Gosia, I was wondering, because this is the Black Baroque project, we're always interested in the work of rewriting, of citing, of transforming Baroque aesthetics, right? And so I was wondering whether you could explain what you are doing, you know, what you are doing in Re-enchanting the World, and what it means for you to cite in your work Baroque art pieces such as the frescoes of the Palazzo Cifanoia in Ferrara, and even more strikingly, the 17th century French engraver Jacques Callot's etching series of Les Bohémiens, which is known for vehicling anti-Romani stereotypes, right? So what do those Baroque traditions mean to you, and what are you doing to them and through them?
Okay, thank you for the question. And for presentation. I think about the when I think about the Palazzo Stefana and about the fresco, about all the history what we find in Ferrara, there is like you talk about that this is three belts. Like the first one is like, you know, because in the Baroque they, you know, the focus also was about the, you know, mythology and Christian, you know, but I decided to change when you see in the Polish pavilion. But I would like to tell you that that when me and curators, when we start to think about the Polish pavilion, about my project and how to combine everything what I want to share and everything what I do, and I start to think about the Ferrara, about the Italy, about the 70th century. Then we find this place, Palazzo Stefano, and we decide to actually to take this the model, like the three belts, also the journey, also like 1 year from the rest, and at the same time we think that will be great to share, like Jacques Callot from the 70th century. The images, because I working, you know, before Palazzo, before Polish pavilion, I working of this topic, like the about the appropriation to reappropriation, yeah, reappropriation, yeah. I'm not sure that I pronounce this is okay, and for me, it was very important to put in the first bird like this, journey and this topic about the, because that was for this time, and in the middle bird, there is the decans or the stars and the zodiac signs, but I put there like her story, the brave woman, and I take only the idea from the 70s, from the Ferrara time, from this time, and the two amazing artists to painting like normal life, daily life from this time, yeah, like I don't know, the people who are like I don't know what it's the same, like the mayor, the famous person, the important person from the time. And I decided to show its story from Roma life, but not for all the Poland, but only for this place where I live, and exactly for our family. Like my family give me like the photo archive from our from the 70s, 80s. Actually, Anna father, he do this, and and I decided to choose them and to show them how we live in this place, and for like more than 40 years, I think 40 or maybe 50 years, and yeah, and when we think like about the Baroque, that what's the I don't know, the same style. It's like I know that I saw it for the the everything for the clothes. I use the textile, but I decided to give them like the clothes is important for me, and how I wanted to show them. This is something what is close of that, but we can back to first. We can back to first bird about the Jacques Callot. Why I decide to use these images, because when we start to think about Anya, she said about that for many centers, then not Roma drawing us, try to show us, and that this is for, I think Jacques Callot is the first images, visual images of Roma people. I know that they call them like Egyptian, but they are Roma, and okay, it's so beautiful, and I like them. This the beauty graphics, but at the same time he put the word is stigmatization. It's like look out for these people. They are stolen. They are dirty. You need to afraid them and something like that. And when I start to think about that, then I realized that for that time until now, the image is the same. Produce not Roma. They produce about us the same images. They show us like poor people, like dirty, and at the same time the women without the dignity. Why I decide you see this, you show for your presentation this the one images when a woman gives birth, and I decide to take her out of these images, because clothes for the original, the men drink clothes of her, eating, and do it many different things like playing and something like that. It's not, I think it's not acceptable in our culture when you think about that. Yes, this is the, they play in the card, and they do it many things, clothes of that. This is, if you grow up of this culture and this tradition, you need to know that for us it's like something for all of the women, because it's like impersonally, yeah, it's something like very important, but at the same time it's only for us and for our husbands, yeah, but not for all of them, you know. And I decided to, you know, to show her alone with only women, you know, and give her like her time, and you know, I change all of these images. The same time, it's like daily life, like, you know, they travel from many centers from the India, how Anya said that, to Europe, until now they're still traveling, but like this is only migration now, because they stopped traveling a long time ago. We are from group, we are never traveling, but yeah.
But I think maybe if I can just add, you know, if for me, what's so striking about Gosia's work here is that, you know, if you look well into Kalot's etchings, and they are, you know, they are really well created, and they really, the whole iconography of, you know, Roma depiction is based on Kalot, you know, and you look into the faces of these people, they are ugly. All the stereotypes, like Gosia says about this birth, you know, scene, that would never ever happen in the Roma context, that you can have a woman giving birth now and the pig being butchered in the same place. You know, it's just the bias and the stereotypes are so put, you know, deeply ingrained in the imagery that Kalot creates. And Gosia gives back these people their dignity, you know, virtually our ancestors, you know, to show them as beautiful people with, you know, in a dignified and humane way. And this is a very transformatory thing, also on a personal level when you see this, you know.
But we need to be honest that we are really what to say, gently
grateful
for the images, because we know how they look. But at the same time, we even, you see, from that time until now, until to I think 20s, yeah, I find some images the same, you know, without the clothes, you know, the shoes, all the time they travel, all the time, you know. The women that are, you know, without, you know, they are so sexualized, yeah. That means for me it's enough, you know. I think I cannot to do it. I think this is the time when the Roma artists start to, you know, talk about that, and this is yeah, what we want to share, and yeah, so to show that this is stigmatization, and I feel that it's a small oppression, yeah.
Thank you. This specific close reading of how you reworked that specific vignette was so helpful in showing us how you're doing that work of decolonization. That's super useful. Thank you. And in the same you know, on the same wavelength, I wanted to ask you, Anna, whether you could illuminate for us the importance of the specific piece, Re-enchanting the World, but also the importance of Gosia representing Poland, you know, not just Romani arts, but Poland at the Biennale, and the importance also of Gosia's work more generally for the fight for Romani liberation right now.
Absolutely. I mean, for us as a community, I think this is huge. Really, last year's, you know, Venice and having Gosia there is huge. I mean, it's really such an enormous milestone for the entire struggle that we represent and for our people on so many different levels. On the one hand, because you know, I mentioned that you know, we have been stereotyped and stigmatized through arts and culture for centuries, and it's really in the last you know, last 100 years maybe that, you know, the Roma artists of Roma background are speaking back. And it's been quite a struggle to be recognized as artists at the same, you know, level as non-Roma artists, because somehow, you know, and I witnessed Gosia's, you know, work throughout, you know, all these years, and how, you know, her art was rejected as contemporary art because she's, you know, of ethnicity, of Roma background. So it would rather be a place for her artwork at the Ethnographic Museum and not at the Museum of Contemporary Art. So there has been decade of struggle of recognizing, you know, the contribution of artists of Roma background as contemporary modern artists that have something to offer. At the same time, as a minority, we don't fit the national narrative. So you will not see our work or work produced by people of our background at, you know, national galleries or in the National Theatre, you know, or any other national space because we are, at the periphery and we don't fit the kind of description, or we don't belong to the majority. So if you look at Venice, which is arguably the most important event of contemporary art in the world, it is based on this very outdated concept of nation states. So anyone who doesn't fit the nation concept, they don't belong. Their art will always be invisible. It will never be accessible to anyone. So the fact that we have an artist of Roma background in a national pavilion is groundbreaking, because it's the first time in history of the entire Venice Biennale that we have an artist of Roma background in the Giardini. There is no other space for us to be there. I will just mention at the margin that last year we didn't have one Roma pavilion because we had two. ERIAC has brought also a Roma pavilion as a collateral event. This is a subsequent year that we've been doing this because our art is not accessible there. So we've been struggling to position us at the space of biggest prestige to show the quality of contributions, the brilliance, the amazing things that are hidden from the side of the world, So there was the pavilion that ERIAC brought as a collateral event, and then Gosia was selected in an open competition to represent Poland. So this is immense, and the number of people who are now exposed to Gosia's palace, really the monumental work created such a ripple effect that we now see increasing interest by, curators, galleries, museums, because they realize that there has been something out there in the world, the art of Roma background inspired in the subjective Roma experience that they have not been able to access. And we hope that this will create a ripple effect for many artists of Roma background and also for other genres of Roma art. And ultimately, it will be a vehicle, a tool for us to try to create a counter narrative of who we are, because Gosia's work is so monumental and it gives back the dignity for us. Also with her stories, the middle belt, it really puts, our heroes, on the stage for the whole world to admire. And it's huge, really, we've been all so proud and so emotional about this. And we hope that, this is really going to create a big impact. And Gosia is the biggest, the brightest we have in the world of the Rome, but also for Poland, and this is really, so we cannot be more proud.
Yeah.
I get emotional when I talk about this.
As one should. And when I was reading your biography, Gosia, I also learned that you created the wooden monument to the memory of the Holocaust of the Romani, and that this monument was the first figural monument to commemorate the extermination. So it sounds like your work has been the forefront of Roma recognition for a while. And you also co-founded ERIAC, which we will hear more about later on. But really the activism and your artistic practice have been intertwined from the start, it seems. Another question for you, Gosia. This time it's about your technique, your process, and I know that you have some beautiful images to show us about that. But first, I'm going to, read my question, which is really a two-part question. So the first one is, can you tell us about your process, about how you put Re-enchanting the World together? And I'm asking because I know you worked with different materials, right? This is a monumental textile work, but before that you worked with cardboard, wood, wax, right? But you chose textile for this one. So can you tell us about your process working with textile? And then the second part of my question, because this is the Black Baroque project, it's about connections between your work and African-American visual aesthetics and visual culture. So I read that at one point you were inspired by the Harlem Renaissance of the 20s and 30s. And so when I was looking at Re-enchanting the World and this beautiful work that you do on textile with recycling, repurposing, layering, cutting, and so on and so forth, I was thinking about the African-American tradition of quilting. And I'm going to very briefly just show a couple of images to illustrate that tradition, which I'm sure you are familiar with, but some audience members might not. So let me get back to this point. Here we go. So this is a pictorial quilt by Harriet Powers from the very end of the 19th century, one of the most well-known exemplars of quilts produced by folks who were enslaved and or formerly enslaved. And that tradition has had a very long life and still very vibrant today. Here's an example of my favorite quilt maker, Bisa Butler, whose work was
know her.
Yeah, her work was, I'm not surprised. Okay, so you know exactly where I'm going, right? I want to hear about how you feel about the quilting tradition and whether you see echoes, similarities, whether that tradition speaks to you.
Okay, about the textile and technique, you know that I finished a sculpture, and for like, I don't know, a long time, like high school and academy, I only do sculpture, use cardboard, wax, and wood. But after that, when I finished academy, I decided, because it was really bad time and I cannot share my work, I cannot find any place when they want to show my work. And I decided, and that was also time when I burned, the one son, the first son, and I decided to back to, because I find so great, in my home, clothes, and my mother gave me some dress, but I cannot throw them and give to another because, those too emotional. Some clothes, we still thinking that we need to keep them in our drawer. Yeah, closet, because we need to remember, we remember some situation, but I decide to use clothes to share some history, to sew it, to put in the paintings, the same time to sew it like patchworks, but yeah, I think that this is close of the minority. Somebody tell me, because you are from Roma, you use clothes, because Roma, they all the time use clothes and textile for do it something. And this is true, because if we're thinking about our grandma, and she never, with her, neighbors, they every time, sometimes, they have like I don't know, the meetings, they can call like meetings, and they sew it like blanket for the bed and some clothes, and I'm after, and they wasn't if the problems to fix, but they share, they continue and they sew many things by hand, and I think that was also the time when they have like a small therapy, like collectives work, and they talk about the very bad situation times, after Second World, and she told us about that was the time when they loved this situation, when they stay together and do it something, and I decided one day, because my friend curator, he invited me to one project, and it's called Chłopy, Pany, Pany, Chłopy in Polish, and he told me that in the one place in Skansen, we find 3 houses from the 60s, and we don't know what we should to do with them in this project. Maybe you decide to do it and to find some, resolution and something nice idea to how to take care about this place. And I decided to sew it like a person, and the patchwork with the animals, and to cover roof, and do hanging also, some clothes, and make the line. And everything was great because I like this place inside in the forest. But amazing was that my whole family joined to this project. Maybe I show you. Oh, look, like my cousins, my aunt. When I talk to them, that the houses that are from 60 and they are in the deep in the forest and nobody take care about them. Yeah, they decide to working with me
because they are old Roma houses.
Yeah.
You have images of these houses?
They are these.
There are this. You see,
these are the houses on this photo, which are
the one museum, ethnography museum, decide to, I don't know, maybe buy or maybe ask Roma people to give them some houses, and they decide to move the place, another place. And
sorry, Emma, do you have an image on your PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah, that the image on the PowerPoint is this one.
Yeah. Do you see that?
I don't know if there is this concept in Europe that ethnographic museums, sometimes they take physical items and they set it up in like an open space to recreate the original, settlements or, workshops of artisans or something.
To show people how they live, and if you see inside, they still, they have like the bed and some clothes inside this house that are closed, but also the one house is from Czarna Góra, and this is our.
We don't see that house right now. What we see is a painting of the women sewing.
Really? Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
No.
I have to point that out.
Okay, sorry.
Here we go. Okay, it started moving.
It's okay now.
Is this one? Can you see
now?
now?
We can see the house. Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
This now? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what happened because we were seeing this photo.
Yeah, we see all the time. And one house is from Czarna Góra, and our grandfather brother. And when I talk to my mother that I find this house, and this house is from Czarna Góra, what we should do? And she told me, yeah, we need to cover this, and you need to sew it and change this place. That was the first time when I decided to sew it with Roma women, and that was like they enjoy and they like it, and this is something more like on my work. Like I think it's like amazing that we still remember about us, about the line, this is like, yeah, we give them this place to like more power. And this is my first time when I start to sew it and use the clothes and textile. And your question was about the I need to find this question about the related with the Afro-American tradition. I think yes, this is like, I tell you that some people, they said that this is so boring that the people from manuring like still use it like this technique to show us and to share like identity and heritage. But I think this is amazing that we have our own language, and this is related. I really, when I see this Visa, some paintings, and I read about her in New York at times, I was so very impressive. I like her work, but also I like another like from Karaoke. I love her work also. Like I saw her work when I was in New York, and I was really impressed, like and how she fighting with colonization and show this, and that time I think this is good way, and this way what I choose is it's exactly what I need to do, because Anya said that after my academy, I had problem with some gallery, with some museums. They all the time tell about me, like, and my friends, like, we are folk artists and we are not professional, but we are professional. but because of our identity, still thinking about us like, we are not to be, I don't know, to be good to, for another. Yeah, but I think, until now, I still use textile, but I still make sculpture. It's not like I forgot about this. This is another project. Is all the time. Yeah, thank you. Oh, can I? You want to? I can show you also.
Yes.
Do you see now my family? Me and my aunt, my cousin. And,
no, we'll see only the house right now.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So strange. Okay, this is my mother.
Now it's changing.
Yeah, it's my mother, my aunt. They, they make the line. Actually, the braids, and they use their own cartons and the fragrance of house, because I all the time call to them from this place where it was house, and they say, no, we need to more line, and they and they say, okay, we need to take the curtains. That means they are very, very like stressful. It's happened there in this forest, and they need to help me.
But it still continues, no, until today, that you still go like to some of the family members and say, oh, I really need your shirt. This shirt is perfect for my new painting. Please give it to me.
Yeah. You can see how this look in our place, close of our house. And it's very easy for me to find all of these women because I live in Roma settlements. That means if I call them, and we are all the time close, and they live only Roma people.
Yeah. I think it's a good time because I know that, there are so many women, right? This is a women's practice that you are recuperating in your own artistic practice, but yet that you are also honoring and citing and representing and re-enchanting the world. So I wanted to hear a little bit about the feminist dimension of your work, Gosha, because the title of your work for the Biennale was inspired by Silvia Federici's book, Re-enchanting the World, Feminism and the Politics of the Common from 2018, in which re-enchanting, I'm reading the description, right? Re-enchanting, a non-violent process in which women play an important role, reverses the unfortunate fate of the world, shaking off its evil spell, unquote. That's quite a program. Okay, so tell us more about this, about feminism and how to actually re-enchant the world and reverse the fate of the world.
Yeah, we yes, for us, her book was very inspired, and why this is, and we decide to put her story in the middle belt, that all of the brave Roma women yes, and even I decide to show it like story about the women who we know them, but at the same time I use them women who nobody knows about that, only me and my family and my cousin, like my mother, my sister, my neighbors, our neighbors, like because even they never, okay, they are not educated, but at the same time, some of them, but at the same time, they try to change something. And I think they are first feminists, of their own family. For me, it was very important to show them. But if you see this place, I'm not sure what's happened here.
Can you see?
Can you see this place? The one images is okay. You see here, you can
the zodiac symbol from the middle.
Zodiac symbol, and the middle is Anya. She's here.
That's you in the middle?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love it. With the glasses, I recognize you.
Yeah. But
this is great. Is that your sign, Anna?
No.
Yes.
No, this is not kosher. This is better. No. I not, because many women are eyebrows and another.
Yeah, everyone wants to be a Virgo.
And that was like complicated a little. But here I want to share and show our grandma, survivor from the Second War, and close of her, Alfreda Markowska Noncia. She survived like in the Second War, during the Second War, 60 children, Roma and not Roma, Jewish. She take them from the train transport when they go to Auschwitz, and she was so brave at that time, and she have only 16 years old when she doing this. But for us, she's like heroes, and and for us, she is so important. Like our grandma, she survived it, and she, because of grandma, our parents, they are educated, because she thinking to change something for the new generation. She was the first, and she decided to push them to school and only to think about educating, not about the different things. Because she realized that that everything is what is important for Roma people is in education, not exactly. Different things. This education changed generation and changed life and everything. She was very, I think, amazing person and very brave, and Why, I want to share like this is her, so like, and I think she was also feminist, because you need to know that Roma women, when I work with them, when I thought that, you are feminists, they said, no, we are not feminists. Even they want to, they change something, because they think that the feminists, like, that means that they need to break relation with tradition, and they need to hate. They told me, we need to hate one man. We don't hate our husband. But I want to explain that, no, it's not like that. You can do it everybody you want, and with your husband also. But I think Ethel Brooks was she read about this.
About Romani feminism,
and about the Romani feminism, about the feminism, minority feminism. That means if you want to be feminist, it's not like you need to break everything with your tradition and heritage, identity. It's not true. You can a little change, or maybe you can you need to find a way how to to live with this, and to the same time to change, and to be to honest with honest to
your traditions.
To tradition, and at the same time to be strong woman, and it's always about the children, because you stay working with some woman, and like here, I don't know that you see that. Do you see that? Okay, great. Like here, this is from Kosovo and from Prizren, and also the women that are from very traditional group, but they come to with me, with men, the Edi Galushi, the I think brother of the one of the woman, and they tell me that they are so happy that they joined this project, because they feel that it's very important for the children. And even they say they are not feminists, they are feminists. They want to change something. They want to be part of something important, And they give me a photo of the mothers, because the one of the her story. This is mother of the one of the woman. She's so. It means it's a lot for me. Like, I really love this. And this is something that, this is the one painting when I decide to show a situation about one woman. She's screaming that she go to make the protest of the government. She's so amazing. She's the Roma assistant, but she told me that she need to change something for this Roma. she in order to tell them that discrimination are, because they want to put in the one side Roma children, the other side not Roma, and she was the person, she want to change this, and she's screaming. This is about the feminists. Why I want to share this? When I want to show all the Roma woman, because I find this really stars of the Roma community. That's mean, yeah. I think sometimes I learn from them, how to be brave and to continue my work, and I think I don't know that I can show you. Okay, it's a lot. I need to find. I have some. Okay. Oh look, this is the last photo. The last photo of the. This is from. I can tell you about this. This is from Göteborg, from my exhibition, and this is a story about the Roma, Swedish Roma, and what's happened in the 75 when the Roma woman they go to the police, in front of the police station, and they start to protest to find about the human rights. They said that they stop to do discrimination, stop to deportation, and they have many slogans. And I want to show you this photo because this is important. If you imagine, this is from 75, but nothing. They still do it this now, like. This is not only one situation, but who are there? There are Roma women, and they are so brave. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I have another question, and Anna, this one is for you, because, well, you will immediately see why it falls under your area of expertise. But I've seen the verb decolonize used a number of times in relation to efforts at dismantling anti-Romani prejudice. And the verb, of course, as you know, is very often used here in the US in the fight to dismantle settler colonialism and its legacy of white supremacy. So I'm curious to hear how decolonization works in the European, not the American context. And I feel like your perspective is going to be particularly interesting given your familiarity with Roma activism in Latin America, where coloniality is a very strong paradigm as well. So I'm curious to hear about how Romani decolonization works in the European context, in the global context, and whether that framework gives opportunities to see solidarities or tensions emerge between the fight for Romani rights and other ongoing anti-racist fights. I'm thinking about indigenous rights in particular.
Absolutely. I think this is a great question, and for us, this is seeing our brothers and sisters in struggle around the world, and I mean by the struggle, I mean the struggle to decolonize. We really see a lot of affinity, and this is because we somehow see ourselves as the internal colony of Europe, or put in a different way, we are somehow the blacks of Europe. So if you consider the long history of presence of Roma on the continent, we predate the modern nation states. And in many of the countries, in some of the countries, we are actually referred to as the blacks or as the calo in our language. That's, for example, how we are referred to in Spain. So, the fact that our presence somehow served as the antithesis to the white European Judeo-Christian tradition that was emerging since the Middle Ages. So us being visibly darker, because Europe is very white generally, so we are quite the darker neighbors, and having an Oriental background at the same time, because we basically brought the Orient, the Oriental presence to Europe, then we became this kind of antithesis. And if you think about this internal colony that I mentioned, the treatment that the colonizers have imposed as they were, colonizing the world, and really imposing the dynamic of oppression to the autochthon, indigenous communities around the world, similar things happen to us. So the questions of oppression, of exploitation, of slavery, the question of economic exploitation and forced work, for example, the question of sexualization of our bodies. If you look, for example, at the practice of ethnography, that was practiced outside of Europe, same focus, same gaze was applied to us. We were the savages on the European continent, the savages outside of the peripheries of your town, on the outskirts of your cities. The photography, for example, of indigenous women around the world, that you have typically, the breast, bare-breasted women, put in line or something, exactly the same photos you'll find of Roma women in European countries. So for us, this practice of a certain dynamic or structure of oppression that was put on us by the white non-Roma, in our societies is really something that is emerging quite clearly. And as we see this struggle to liberate, ourselves and also help the white majority realize, the framework of oppression that was imposed on us, we are very strongly inspired in the struggle that's happening around the world on the decolonizing. So by decolonizing, what we mean is really to detach and unlearn somehow the stigma, the stereotype, the prejudice, the misrepresentation of our culture, and also the hierarchy that's associated to it, right? Because we're still seen as this worst category of a citizen, the subhuman somehow, the inferior. And you see this very clearly with the legacy of, the first half of 20th century up until the Second World War. When we decolonize, we try to decolonize ourselves to detach from the stigma and the self-stigmatization that's associated with this image in the society, but at the same time, work towards the institutions. So we try to dismantle the white European kind of approach and this external gaze by picking back, by having the periphery go back to the center. And, you asked Gosia a few minutes ago about feminism, for us, looking at the Black feminists, for example, in academia, but also in civil rights movement has been incredibly powerful and incredibly inspiring. So I feel like we really look a lot at the processes that happen, for example, with the museums and how museums are being decolonized. We try to do the same thing with decolonizing museum protocols, with looking into the archives, and kind of going with the same struggle. So I think that there's a lot more that we can do as kind of marginalized subaltern communities, and also I think a lot more that we should do to help the white majority realize the inequality, the historical kind of violence that has been imposed on us and that still continues today.
That is so important. And I feel like the work that you're mentioning, right, of transforming the white gaze and making white people aware of their whiteness or the oppressive mechanisms through which their whiteness came into being, just so hard in Europe. Like, I feel like at least in the US, when you start talking about whiteness, people know what you're talking about. In Europe, when you start talking about whiteness, very often people just reject the concept of it. So it's
if I could just have a parenthesis on this, because I think it's really cool, because in our language we refer to the non-Roma, to the white, as the gajo.
Yes,
and this is a word that we have for the whites, and also we have a group of associated stereotypes about the white. And we just recently opened an exhibition in the Museum in Marseille in France, and one of the spaces there was the Gagiology Museum, a Gagiology cabinet, where we basically reverse the gaze and we present the white Gajo from their settlement, and showing the rituals, from the cradle to the grave,
what we think about them,
just to basically ridicule the ethnographic practice and just to, how would a white Gajo person feel if they would be presented the way we are in ethnographic museums.
I want to go back to France just to see that exhibition. But two quick follow-up questions, and then we will open the floor to questions from folks in the audience. And the first one is there a place for non-white, non-Romani people? Like, what about, like, am I a Gaji? right? So what place is there here in Romani epistemology for other non-white people? And the second one is, can you tell us about the activities of ERIAC? Because I feel like ERIAC is really in charge of dismantling and changing that white gaze. So it would be great to hear from you both about ERIAC.
Allyship, okay, what for the I think it's very important to all the time to thinking, you know, about the humanity, about the dignity, and also integration is very important. I don't say that we need to be out of the biggest minority. We need to be, and in this the minority of the culture, you know, and the biggest culture. Yeah, I think I don't have reception for this, you know. I think into the best way what we should do to be honest in ourselves and to thinking about also about the others, and the same time to not give up and yeah, this is like this reception. I don't have like another. What do you think, Anya? What do you have? Do you have another?
I don't know if I don't have a recipe for this maybe, but you know, I think that it's super timely. I really think so, because you know, especially here in Europe, but I think it's a trend around the world. Unfortunately, we see the societies being increasingly closed, nationalistic, xenophobic, you know, trying to kind of be, you know, saying this is us, this is ours, you know, and there is it targets a lot of minorities, and we see how all of those that have been seen as, you know, the minority to the majority, and that happen to be people of color in most cases, in most countries, and also indigenous communities. We are the first targets, you know,
Yes,
and we see a lot of affinity, not only in our struggle and the discrimination, the oppression, the violence that we face, but also in the resilience and the strength and the innovation and, you know, the creativity that we have. Just because we didn't have any other choice, right? We are all communities that have to deal with massive, you know, disadvantage as a community and with a lot of barriers. So we have to be very creative and resilient. And I think that the time is now, as we see the world, you know, turning towards the right and turning towards a more radical structure of society. I think it maybe somehow pushes us closer together. And I think that for us as Roma, I said at the beginning, you know, that we are an incredibly diverse community, and we are really there is a plurality of different, you know, communities around us, but we feel like one. So we believe that, you know, unity doesn't mean sameness, you know, it means being together, it means solidarity, it means, you know, having each other's back. And that's what we do in the Roma context. So we really feel that we can have a lot to offer from how our culture is, you know, how we relate to each other. So maybe this is something that we can be inspired by. And I really feel that we need more spaces, you know, like a space like we have today. We don't have enough of those. And if we had more, for sure, we'd have amazing, you know, initiatives together. And I think the cultural field would be the one that would be easiest to start, and that would be most really spectacular. I mean, with the talent that we have in our communities, you know, just bring the forces together. You know, let's have a big pavilion, you know, in Venice.
It's very important when we talk about that. Somebody talk about something that's happened. Without us, it's much better when they invite us. They you know, that we are like here. We are part of this conversation, and we talk about us because we know more about our culture, about our mentality, identity, about, you know, everything what's happened with us, what we feel, and what is important. Yeah. Yeah, what Anya said is true, but we need to believe that that maybe the change and it will be better.
Yeah,
but that's, yeah, we not give up. Yeah,
yeah.
we still do many things. Yeah, but this is about the area, you can say.
Maybe just a few things about ERIAC. I think it's really cool to mention. You know, there has been decades of struggle of having our own institution that would act as an arts and culture institute, because we don't have a Ministry of Culture, we don't have, an embassy. So we wanted to have a space from which we can very assertively create narratives about who we are. And this became possible with ERIAC, which is based in Berlin, but we work throughout Europe, and we also have a sister office in Belgrade in Serbia. And it's an association. So we have, right now over 300 members, Roma and non-Roma, individuals and organizations that have competency of arts and culture. And we work with knowledge production, with the arts and culture field, with media, with the Romani language, and with the history and commemoration thematic sections. So we use this to, on one hand, build self-esteem among our own communities, and at the same time fight anti-Gypsyism. And we use arts and culture because we believe that this is where we have so much to offer, and also it's one of the few spaces where being a Roma might be considered an added value. So we see that this is a good entry point to try to talk about social issues, about inequality, about the politics. We've done Venice Biennale, we've curated in Kassel and Documenta, we've curated in Museum, but we also publish books, we do research, we do festivals and events. We try to kind of do a lot while we are still a small team in a small space. And Gosia was one of the people actually that was also lobbying, and being a public figure, also pronouncing herself very strongly at, to say we need the institution as ERIAC. So not an online space, not a temporary exhibition, but an institution with windows and doors. And we have it, and we hope that we'll have many of those. And we dream of a big Roma museum of contemporary arts eventually. So keep fingers crossed for us.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that is so inspiring, and I want to be mindful of time. So we have some people in the audience. So this is the moment when, if you have questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to just turn on your camera and ask away. I have more questions to ask if nobody has more questions, so I'm very happy to use that time. But feel free to manifest yourself if you want to. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, this is right.
There are some comments in the chat.
It sounds like our audience members are being quiet for now, so I'm going to ask. I have a couple of questions, but first I would like to hear Gosia about your new projects. What are you working on now? And is the Baroque still part of it?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I already 2 days ago I finished the one exhibition in Switzerland, in Zurich, about the Roma, some Roma her stories. Still, continue these works about the Roma woman. And this is one exhibition, but but I have another in a Baroque museum here in Berlin. That will be in the 25th of June opening, and Anya, she helped me with other friends in the education program, and that will be about the decolonization, about the about the different perspective from our side, about the paintings from the like Otto Müller, like another painter who paid Roma. Actually, they paid Cygane, that's gypsies, but they show us like without the clothes, and they still continue the same style, like all of them from many centers. But yeah, but we want to talk about the anti-Gypsies in this during this exhibition, about our culture. Like many sections will be like the Baroque Museum. There are open for many different education activities, and that's I think this exhibition will be that will be time to talk about the different topics, about what is important for us. This is two projects what I have this year, I think. Yeah,
You have more.
I have more, like in Sevilla also, but that's the Polish pavilion all the time travel, and now it's in the Zachęta National Gallery in Warsaw, but after that goes to Sevilla in Museum of Modern Art. Yeah, that's mean. Yeah, this is
Re-enchanting the World is going to have a long life.
yes.
And because something I heard you say at the beginning is that you go to Baroque aesthetics because that's where it started, right? The beginning of all those tropes, those stereotypes that you're countering and always pushing against and trying to decolonize. So it sounds like this is a stream that will be ongoing, that will keep on flowing in your future work as well. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah, okay. Do you want to talk about this?
Well, I think that
What do you think?
I definitely think it will continue because Gosia
Yes,
is
that's
one
true.
of the most powerful.
This is my husband's work.
He's also a painter.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, but definitely, I think Gosia is one of the most powerful weapons we have to dismantle stereotypes that are born back then, and Baroque had played a big role in creating the iconography of who we are and how we are still seen. So I'm happy to hear that Gosia continues with this theme.
Yes, I like this topic actually, to find some, and this is like good research with my curators, also with myself, to find in some archivum some bad things about art. This is the time when we talk about the anti-Gypsy, but when we thinking do you imagine that we have this the topic in the 70s that but we don't have people who are who finding that say something more, but we need to continue. But I'm not once, we have more artists who do it the same, continue the same works, and and we know we sometimes we talk about that and we share our ideas, but I'm not only one.
And the work of those other artists, I'm sure, is being platformed by ERIAC as well, right? So ERIAC
Absolutely
is the place to go for folks who want to hear more and discover more about contemporary Romani art.
Absolutely, we curate and exhibit as much as possible, and we also have a space called Ramoma, which is basically a kind of a performative, space for us to imagine a contemporary Roma museum, and that unravels through, exhibitions, publications. We have a blog, and we feature most of the contemporary artists. So Gosia's success really started to open doors for other Roma artists, and institutions are starting to be more aware of what's out there, and we are here to serve them, and we're really happy to see every success out there. Yes, please visit ERIAC. We have also very active social media and Facebook pages, and Roma is also Instagram, so follow us.
You're on Twitter?
No, we're not on Twitter. I mean, we try, but not really. I would say Instagram and Facebook are the two bigger platforms where you can find us.
And your website itself is just so rich. I started looking at it and I was like, okay, I will need hours to actually go through everything.
It's plenty.
Well, we are at time, so I suggest that we just stop here. I want to be mindful of the fact that you are zooming in from Berlin, and in Berlin it's 9:30 p.m. right now, so we are grateful for your time, and we're going to let you go. But thank you so much.
Thank you so
Genius trailblazer facilitators. This was just a really invigorating conversation, and I'm so grateful that you decided to join us on the Black Baroque Project platform. So thanks again. Please join me in giving a virtual.
Thank you so much for inviting us. And let's see if this takes us to another one of bringing our allyship together.
Absolutely. This is the beginning. This is the beginning.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so